in July, there was a email that was sent out basically talking about the fact that the courts are moving that way and basically outlining a straw deck process of how that would work. I'm very pleased to let you know that Rolene, who is our admin team lead in Calgary, has been working very closely with the court clerks to develop a process internal to OPGT, and she has really taken a leadership role in how this all works and really working closely to develop the actual processes. Today, we're going to hear from Rolene. She will be doing a PowerPoint presentation that we will be able to send out to everyone after the presentation today. We might need to make a couple of tweaks, but then we will make sure that we share that out with everyone. Once Rolene has finished the presentation, we'd like to open it up to questions, which we will be recording today. As you'll note, we are recording this session, which I'm sure will lead to a really good discussion on the impacts of what this new way of filing documents with the courts is going to mean for OPGT. And there may be impacts that we cannot have up to this point. Imagine what those will be. But with the collective experience of people that are on the phone call today, hoping that we can kind of identify some of those questions, so I'll be recording those questions. And then probably scheduling some additional meetings to kind of unpack some of those impacts. And then scheduling those. So I just wanted to say, in terms of the terminology that we've adopted with the e-filing, from a legal point of view, I should clarify that the e-filing terminology really relates to e-filing and an e-platform, but this is really just a digital manner. So really now it's just emailing. The courts do have a plan eventually to move to a full digital platform, and that Justice Jones has shared his passion for doing so. And so this is a continuously changing system. So it's not like this is how the system is, this is how it's going to be. As Rolene will share with you, this is an evolving system that's evolving over time. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Rolene. Rolene is a strong member of our administrative team leads meeting, and she is also the business admin team lead for Calgary OPGT for Guardian Services. So I'm going to introduce Rolene. I'm not sure if she will be sharing her screen or not, but I will go to mute and stop video for my point for this particular point in time. Over to you, Rolene.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So again, hi, I'm Rolene. Nice to talk to everybody. I'm just going to pretend there's nobody in front of me so I can get through this without my nerves acting up. So please bear with me. And yeah, so this is my process that I developed here in Calgary. Before we begin, please be advised that this is the process I developed while working with the Calgary Surrogate Court Clerks directly. I chose to work with Lena Clayton, who approached me so that we could develop the process together on both aspects. You may choose to try other ways or methods that work for you, but in Calgary, this is a process we worked out, and we have been successfully e-filing for a couple of months now. We did have some recent tweaks that we made, but I've updated the PowerPoint to reflect those. This presentation also focuses on the private applications. The only real difference with public, I think, and somebody else can step in at the end, is that it's not a private desk app, it's a public desk app. So it's basically the same process. Yeah, so go to the next slide. Things to note. So when e-filing documents with the Surrogate Courts of Alberta, the electronic copy becomes the original once it is filed. You can still submit a check or money order using this process, or have the clerks of the court request a payment from the applicant via email. I believe a different court clerk from Edmonton suggested to another case aide to provide the phone number, I believe, but this is, again, one of those evolving things, but this is what's working for us, so we're going with the email. On a lawyer application, it must have an e-file request form filled out, and I'll show you one of those later on. So every lawyer application being e-filed has to have one. Apparently, it does not need to be signed, and you should print a copy for the physical file. The clerk should not be rejecting lawyer applications back to us unless it has one of the 5 fatal flaws below. If they do, kindly contact surrogate court and advise them to reject to the lawyer as per previous meetings. The fatal flaws that were discussed at our February 11th, 2020 clerk of the court meeting are as follows. Wrong name on check. It should be made out to the government of Alberta and nothing else. If it's made out to the government of Canada, the clerks will not accept it. If an application is unsigned or not dated correctly or not completed, that's a fatal flaw that can be rejected back to us. If there's no capacity assessment report required, there also must be a draft order submitted with every application, and all affidavits and inventories must be sworn or affirmed appropriately, or these will be rejected back to us. If we have a very large file, we will choose to file via registered government courier, physically mailing all the originals to court. This prevents us having to figure out how to attach very, very large files, because sometimes like E&A applications or inventory exhibits can be quite large. So in our situation, we've decided to just mail those ones because it's so much easier. So in Calgary, we keep the original documents in the physical file until the order is granted, and then they are shredded. Because as I said earlier, once the documents are e-filed, they become the original documents. So there's no need for us to keep those. This may generate some discussion after, and we will deal with it then. And it sometimes can take a few days to receive the filed email back from the court, depending on their workload. They will attach the filed documents to their email, and that's where you'll find the court file number and the file date to update OPGIS, etc. These are the court email addresses for submitting e-filings to. Calgary has their own specific one. They like it to come directly to them, but the rest of them are all provided for you. And it'll go into more detail in later slides about what to put in the subject line, etc. So this is what we've been using for naming conventions for the attachments when e-filing, and they're all done in PDF format so that they cannot be changed. The e-file request form, that form is only used for the lawyer applications. Kind of self-explanatory, the Form 14, and it's just the last name at the end of it. Form 15 plus attachments, that includes your car, your consents, guardianship, trusteeship plans, your affidavit. Form 37, that's your inventory, and all the exhibits are attached in there. You do not need to attach the exhibits or name them separately. And this is Calgary process again. The RO report, there's different ways you can name that, but this is how we choose to do it. Form 18 draft, that's for your regular G&T orders. The Form 18 Section 113 order is the Section 113 order, and also the letter that goes with it. So this is one of the e-file request forms and what it looks like. So if there was already a court file number, it would go here. That's your DA01123455. More so on reviews. The lawyer's file number that you find on the first page of the application would go here. And your information here, the date. The represented adult goes here. The applicant name here. And here's where we put our information about the filing fee and what type of application it is. So if it was public, you would put public desk and Crown costs. The different alternatives are here for what kind of fee it is. And down here, make sure you select the correct JC because it's defaulted to Edmonton. So if you don't change it before you save it, it'll say Edmonton. So this is kind of an email example of what I use to copy and paste, and then I just remove whichever one of these 3 filing fees is not applicable. I just remove them. And same down here, I just delete this if there's no actual filing fee because this is what's physically going to the courts once it's accepted for filing. So this is what my email would look like, sending a thing to be filed when there's the clerks to request fees. So this little blurb right here is what the clerks recently asked me to put in because it wasn't really talking about the fees in the email. So I changed the whole presentation to include that. And John James Smith is just a made up name, and this is just made up forms. There's nothing actually in there. So that when the PowerPoint gets shared, there's no actual information in there that shouldn't be shared anywhere. I've recently had to submit a section 113 order for filing, and this is how I did it, and it was accepted. The only difference is you're adding these two spots in here, and you're also adding the PDF of the letter and the draft section 113 order. What happens next after you've submitted it for e-filing? So the surrogate courts will respond back to your email stating that the application has been filed or stating that it has been rejected and will provide the reasoning. Once the documents have been officially filed, the clerks will send the filed copies back to you via email and provide you with a new court file number. Once this happens, you can now send the checklist for the clerks of the court, the envelopes for the granted orders, and a filing fee if there is one to the required JC via registered government courier. You must enter the file date and the court file number on the clerk's checklist before sending. See example on the next slide. Different OPGT regions use their own style and format of this checklist for the clerks. This is what we use in Calgary. You can talk to your admin team leads about these. This is what we use in Calgary for our checklist for the clerks of the court. I've added this part right here to reflect for the e-filings. It's very clear to everybody. So you will receive this info when the clerk's reply filed via email. The court file number will be located on the filed documents attached from surrogate court. In this section right here, this is where we talk about the filing fee. If we are including a physical filing fee, it'll say filing fee included. If the applicant is to pay via credit card, it will have this put in there with the email address to be contacted at. And if it's Crown costs, as most of our public applications are, it would look like this. You're also going to write the new court file number here, and this form will be attached to all the self-addressed stamped envelopes and the filing fee attached to it as well, and this will get sent to court. Now, this might look kind of weird to everybody, but this is how our clerks in Calgary ask us specifically to send our filings and our things in, so that if there is a filing fee, it's not going to go stale dated because it's sat in their pile waiting to be opened. This alerts them right away that there is money, etc., without actually putting the words money on the envelope, etc. So this is something that we've worked out with Calgary. I don't know if other regions do it, but this is the process that we follow. And all these envelopes are put into one big envelope, so nobody really sees these little ones until they get there. And on the big envelope, if there was even just one fee, I would just put urgent so they know there is a fee in there. So for OPGIS data entry, this is the stuff that we use here in Calgary. So this is what I use for a journal note after I've submitted it to be filed, which email I submitted it to, the date, and then it just talks about how the checklist and envelopes will be sent via registered government courier once it's verified filed. So you would go and enter the court file number on the orders tab in OPGIS. Enter the application file date on the orders tab under order dates. So for myself, I enter the date that I submitted it for filing. And then once I receive the filed email back, I just verify that it's still the same date because it has in the past been a different date. I just want to update that to be correct. And then I put another OPGIS note explaining that it's been e-filed and everything's been sent to court and the registered government courier number for tracking purposes. Again, your notes don't have to be exactly like this, just what I do and just what I'm sharing. I've just put in here an email body to cut and paste, so if it's easier for you, but I can also send stuff from my OneNote if you like, so it's easier to copy and paste. Again, more stuff to just copy and paste. Thank you. I do, like I said, I have all the info saved on OneNote, so if you'd like it for copy and paste purposes, just let me know via email and I will send it to you. Thank you, and I guess we can answer any questions now, and thank you.
Thanks so much, Rolene. That was an excellent kind of administrative overview of how we actually do the technical filing of the documents with the court. So yeah, we'll open it up for questions. I'd ask that people could write the questions into the chat. And Monica was going to help us with the technical aspects of this. She's just had to step away. So go into the attendees.
I do see Susan Wright has a question.
Okay.
She's saying, did you get input from other jurisdictions for this process or only Calgary? So I specifically only worked with the Calgary clerks, and that was it. I don't know how else to answer that question, but Tim Lowe's asking, are there other regions using this e-filing? I've sent it to a couple different regions, case aids that asked for it, and they were successfully able to e-file in Calgary. Now, I haven't actually done this to a different JC yet, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. But I'm just sharing my process with Calgary because we seem to have the trickiest clerks to deal with. Jasmine's saying, just for clarity, with large files like examination of accounts applications, we would only mail the physical copy to court. No digital copy of the file would be sent to court. For an ENA, you'd be either e-filing or sending everything, I believe, via mail. We don't really deal with ENAs here. We always send them up to Lincoln and you guys. I have a comment from Jolene. Thank you, Rolene. We had to file an application with the Court of Queen's Bench in Calgary. The instructions and process that you provided to Angela were very helpful, and we had successful filing in Calgary. Margot is saying, do we know if this process will be extended to surrogate court applications?
Yes, I believe it will, Rolene. That the plan is actually to go to full-scale digital or email applications. We haven't received any word, though, from the courts as to when.
And Lincoln Mars, any definition of large? I don't really have a definition of large like that. Everything I've tried to submit so far was small enough that it could be sent that way, so I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps when you guys start, you can share some of that knowledge with us. Jasmine or combined application. I think that goes with her previous question. Stephanie Crichton, confused as to court file number referred to in the PowerPoint. This is a different number than the DA numbers. I'm just going to go back in that slide so I can. Are you referring to this action number here? The court file number, the DA01? Yeah, so this is your DA01 number, would be your action number. Not sure what exactly you were. No, this is your DA01565 number, the number that's generated by the clerks of the court. Action number, court file number. Yep.
Monica's just returned, and so we're taking the participants off mute.
Okay. This presentation will be sent to everybody after the meeting. It'll get, the PowerPoint will be sent out. So I'm going to talk to Sherry's question. She's asking, when I file an e-file an application, do I still keep a paper file copy in my office? And how do I get the lawyer account number? So I actually haven't had to submit one for a lawyer because we were actually submitting this for every application recently. And then we were told to only send this for lawyer ones. So I'm not 100% sure about that. I think as long as we put in their file number, it's gonna generate that to them. But I'll have to clarify that with our clerks. And we always keep a file copy of our documents. We always have. It's how we have an extra set of documents because we keep filing. No, this was a court review process. It was the clerk of the courts in Calgary that approached me and asked me to work with them to get this process ironed out. I believe we have for the most part.
Sorry, everyone, we're having to mute again. We're having a lot of background noise. So I'll ask people to continue to put your questions in the chat.
So Jolene had a comment. She was just saying that Calgary is the most thorough of the clerks for our filing. So if they accept the process, I believe it will become an accepted and adopted process across the rest of the courts for our applications. Trust me, our clerks in Calgary are the pickiest clerks. I know this from experience. Yes, you did, Jolene. Is there any more questions that I can try to answer? Did I answer everything pretty good in the PowerPoint? Because there ain't that many questions.
Hang on, Lindsay McVady has a question. Will a co-decision order be accepted by e-filing, or do we submit the original with the checklist?
We haven't done a co-decision one that I've seen yet, but I believe they'll accept everything by e-filing as long as you lay it out the correct format. Yeah.
Another question from Jolene. Do we know when this will roll out to these other judicial centers for filing? Technically, this was supposed to be rolled out right away. Only Calgary has actually figured out the processes. So there was very little information that came out about the, as we call it, the e-filing of the court applications in terms of instructions. So we're really pleased with the leadership that Rolene has been able to take to actually develop the steps and to walk us through this. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of her expertise and experience as we're expected to do this. And you may be in a position where you're actually educating some of the clerks, which is unfortunate, but I think things are moving so quickly with the courts that they're kind of catching up on the processes as they go. Question, where can we get a copy of the e-filing form for represented adults?
It was actually sent to me and I just had it in my email. I don't actually know where you would go look for it. I would imagine on the Court of Queen's Bench website. Although I can send it out. We can send it out with the presentation. I can have a blank copy sent.
That would be great. They do have quite a repository of forms on their website, I know, for the court.
It'd be hard to find stuff in there. And I had the clerks send me this one directly, so I know this is what they're using.
Okay. Question, so this process covers desk applications. What about for hearings we have initiated?
I don't work on the public documents. That would be Lindsay McVady who works on those in our office. I know she has e-filed some. I'm not sure how that works with the hearings for public. Because I know for private hearings, all we're filing is the RO report, so.
Comment from Jasmine, we have a few lawyer apps going to Calgary JC, so that might be helpful to include so we follow a consistent practice. Thank you. Brigham asked, will we be going over this at a clerk's meeting? Perhaps that would be the best way to educate all that are not currently using this process. Just wanted to mention that we've asked Todd and Wade to set up a OPGT clerks of the court meeting several times. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to get back to us with a date. And so we've just taken matters into our own hands to ensure that our staff have information. Next question from Dan White. Do filing fees, still get sent in, or do we now have the clerks of the court deal with filing fees directly? Or is it still our obligation to follow up with filing fees?
So we still will accept filing fees. We're trying a little pilot project about returning checks to get them to use the email process for credit cards, etc. We found that we were dealing with, the clerks would tell people that they had to submit a check for money order. So us telling them, no, we're not accepting it was becoming a problem. So we'll accept them in our office and we will file them if we receive one. If it is expired before we file it, then we will return it and tell them that the clerks will contact them. So I believe if we've submitted a fee that is wrong, it's still our obligation to follow up on it. However, if it was a clerk's trying to contact an applicant, it should still be them contacting them for their email. That shouldn't come through us. Does that make sense?
Great, and thank you to Patrick Gems. He's just put on the chat e-filing form application here, second on the list. So there's a link there that will be available.
Thank you, Patrick. Again, this is just my process I use for private because I don't touch the public files at all. So it's geared towards the private stuff, right?
Okay. A question from Shauna Gallagher about the GPass system now. So how will we know if the applicant wants to pay via email? Then would we accept the application without a check? I think going to be one of the impacts, isn't it, with having this new GPass, that there needs to be some clear direction probably from our end as well in terms of letting folks know that they have the option to pay with either credit card now or check. Is that right, Rolene?
Yeah, so we had one applicant, I believe she was in the UK. I might be wrong about the country, but she asked for us to specifically accept a check. So in that case, we just knew to take the check and that was that. I think it might kind of come down to maybe, I don't want to get anybody riled up, but it might be the review officers when they're talking to people, setting stuff up to, explain to them or things like that.
Yeah. So we may need to tweak that process there. GPass is the name of the actual system that the courts are using to actually get the payment, kind of like PayPal, it's GPass. Eventually they want to use an improved digital platform for the payment. But when I refer to GPass, that's the name of the system that they're sending out by email. A lot of the lawyers are already using that where they have an applicant put in a credit card application. But yes, we would accept an application even without a check. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And then we would just request that they either send us a check or actually like our letters right now. And I think the Letters and Forms Committee is working on centralizing all of our letters and forms right now. So eventually they're all going to look the same. But as of right now, what we're doing is in our acknowledgement letter stating that they are to pay a $250 fee, if that's how much it's supposed to be, and that the clerks will contact them. And I believe if they have an issue, they kind of contact our office and say, hey, I don't have a credit card. Can I still submit a check? And then they will.
Okay. Comment from Jasmine, it's a great idea. When people come in person again, we often get inquiries about whether or not they can pay by credit card or debit.
I don't know if the debit stuff works, but definitely credit cards, yes.
Okay. Comment from Daniel White to everyone. The clerks of the court have been sending directly to applicants through their email addresses to contact them and pay the filing fee. Thanks, Dan.
Yep, and I've had orders granted using this process and nothing else, and it's working for us here. So we may want to ask people working on public docs to, update it to their own, the public stuff, maybe. I was kind of put on the spot to do this, so.
Thank you, Rolene.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering, based on the information that you've presented today, if there are additional topics. We did have a question that was raised around will courts accept digital signatures now? That came up this morning, and from Joanne Luby. So, Rolene, did you want to comment on that? I know we discussed that earlier.
I think eventually they're going to be. I have no idea how that's going to look yet. I'm really not. I might have forgotten something we talked about this morning because I'm so nervous.
Yeah, I don't think there's been anything. So I think those are the type of questions that we will take forward to the clerks to ask them to respond around the digital signature, and we can keep you updated on that. A question from Sandy Ringham. Does this speed up the whole process? Question mark.
I think it does. I don't know. It kind of depends, I guess. We're dealing with so much change, though, and I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, to be honest, because when you first start doing it, it seems very time consuming because you're just learning it. But once you get into the groove of it, I find it's just quick. And then from the time that you get the confirmation that it's been filed, I believe you have up to 14 days to get your original sent to them, like your checklist and your envelopes. So I made it a process. As soon as I get the filed email, it all goes into the big email and it's sent out like that day or the next day.
Comment from Sherry Zattery. Great job, Rolene. Echo those comments. Question from Stephanie. We have applicants who don't have checks or credit cards sometimes. Wondering if the GPass system will accept Visa debit cards.
It's a good question. I haven't had any experience with that to know, but they can still always go get a money order.
Okay. Another question from Sherry Zattery.
Do we get granted orders quicker using this process? I haven't been able to track any of that. I can't track a whole lot of stuff right now because I have too much on my plate. But I find, I don't know, sometimes I'll get an email back in 10 minutes that it's been filed, and other times it's been 5-6 days before I've heard that. Okay. So it just varies on the clerk's workloads, I believe.
And I can also add to that, in a previous meeting that we had, they were talking about, I know that it was the roundtable meeting in Calgary, and some of the people from Calgary were making the lawyers from Calgary were making comments that when they were filing paper applications versus digital, it was taking significantly longer for them to and to receive information. So they had some concerns about that. Comment from Lindsay McVetti, who says, I believe the digital signatures have been accepted. I can find one as a reference if you like. Lindsay, that would be much appreciated. Really appreciate if you follow up on that, and perhaps you could do a screenshot for us and share that with us, or to send that out after the meeting, or send it to me and I can share that with the rest of the group. Question to just the rest of the group then. Are there other topics related to this that you would like to see featured in another admin topic, perhaps to be offered next month that we can prepare for and offer to you? Got right away, section 113 orders, please. Any other topics of interest? Well, if you do think of some additional topics, perhaps you can send those my way just by a simple email after this presentation today. This has been just fantastic. I really do appreciate all the interest that people have done. release of information orders from the AGTA registry. That's great. I want to sincerely thank Rolene for her leadership on this and for sharing her expertise. I also want to thank Graham and everyone who has provided input to the presentation today, and to Monica for helping us hold this seminar and be so patient with us as we kind of learn the ropes here. Rolene, any final comments that you'd like to share?
I just appreciate everybody's questions and patience while we do kind of still work through this process. I was actually very nervous to do this today, but now that I've done this, and it's the biggest group I've presented to, I feel very confident that I can do this again in the future. So thank you everybody for making it a wonderful experience. And happy filing.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be sending the PowerPoint out after the presentation. Thanks, guys. Rolene, phenomenal job. Monica, thank you so much. Can you stop recording the presentation?